Jesus used to kiss her often on her mouth. That's a direct quote from a secret gospel so explosive, the church banned it, and it was lost for over 1,600 years. But who exactly was the woman Jesus kissed openly right in front of the other disciples? Which seriously pissed them off, by the way. We'll get to that. It was Mary Magdalene, but this forbidden gospel doesn't just stop at kissing. No, it also reveals that Mary Magdalene may have been Jesus' wife. But wait, there's more. Did you know Mary Magdalene had her own secret gospel? Yeah, neither did I until I started digging. Her gospel was suppressed, hidden, buried, but now it's resurfacing finally. And get this, it contains secret teachings from Jesus himself on how to escape this material reality. Yeah, you heard me right. This gospel is literally a spiritual jailbreak manual, a step-by-step guide to waking up and discovering who and what you really are beyond the illusion of this world. Sound insane? Blasphemous? Heretical? Well, that's exactly the feeling the church wanted you to have. They tried to bury this for almost 2 millennia, because this gospel reveals that Mary was chosen to replace Jesus as leader and teacher. That's right, Mary was the original heir to Jesus' teachings. She was supposed to carry forward knowledge so radical and explosive that it could unravel the church's grip on billions. Today, the early church knew this, and they were terrified. So, not only did they ban her gospel, they called her a prostitute and branded her as a sinful woman who needed redemption. But guess what? Nowhere, not once in the actual Bible, is Mary called a prostitute. So who was she really? And what was this secret knowledge that threatened the church's authority so much? In this video, we'll uncover Mary Magdalene's true role, reveal the secrets she carried, and explore how her hidden gospel is helping people today awaken to their own spiritual power. Stay tuned, because the truth you're about to discover might just change everything you thought you knew. There's a secret story that's been hidden in the shadows of history, buried deep beneath centuries of censorship, misinterpretation, and religious politics. It's a story that, once revealed, has the potential to shake the very foundations of what we think we know about Jesus, his teachings, and the people closest to him. We're talking about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, a lost gospel that was hidden for nearly 1,600 years before finally resurfacing in a dusty antiquities market in Cairo in 1896. But this isn't just another historical curiosity. No, this gospel is radical, it's revolutionary, and it's deeply personal, because within its fragile pages lies a message so powerful, so liberating, that it was deemed dangerous by early religious authorities who were desperate to control the narrative of who Jesus was and who could carry his legacy. The Gospel of Mary was found in a papyrus codex written in Coptic, tucked away alongside other early Christian texts. What shocked scholars wasn't just its existence, but what it contained. This wasn't a gospel about the birth, death, or miracles of Jesus. This was a record of deep spiritual dialogue between Jesus and his most misunderstood disciple, Mary Magdalene. You see, Mary isn't portrayed here as a background character or a reformed sinner. She's front and center. She's the one Jesus trusts with profound spiritual truths. She's the one who comforts and instructs the male disciples after Jesus' departure. And most shockingly, she's the one who claims to have received visions and teachings directly from him after his death. Let that sink in. Mary Magdalene, not Peter, not John, not James, is the one who steps forward as the teacher. And that didn't sit well with the others. The Gospel even records how some of the disciples, especially Peter, questioned her credibility and her closeness to the Master. But Mary stands her ground, and another disciple, Levi, defends her, saying Jesus clearly loved her more than any of them. This Gospel disrupts everything. It rewrites the power dynamics. It challenges the patriarchal lens through which history has been filtered. It paints Mary not as a passive bystander, but as the one chosen to carry forward the most sacred, secret teachings of Christ, teachings that were never meant for institutions, but for awakened individuals ready to discover the truth within themselves. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. The Gospel of Mary doesn't just focus on her personal relationship with Jesus. It introduces a radically different view of salvation, one that has nothing to do with sin, guilt, or sacrifice. Instead, it talks about the soul's journey beyond the material world, through inner planes of consciousness, shedding attachments and illusions until it returns to its divine origin. This is not the Christianity most people are familiar with. This is something older, purer, more mystical, and it raises a profound question: why was this version of the story buried for so long? Could it be that the early church feared what might happen if people believed they could access divine wisdom without a priest or a church? That they might realize the kingdom of heaven wasn't some faraway place, but a state of consciousness available here and now? The Gospel of Mary is more than a text. It's a spiritual map, a call to inner freedom. And once you start reading between the lines, it becomes clear this isn't just Mary's gospel, it's ours too. Coming up next, we'll dive deeper into Mary's role, not just as a follower but as the most trusted confidant of Jesus. What made her so special, and why was her voice silenced for centuries? Stay with me. For centuries, Mary Magdalene has been cast in the shadow of other disciples, relegated to footnotes, misconceptions, and crude labels like the prostitute. But if we let go of the dogma and go straight to the suppressed texts, a completely different image begins to form, one that challenges everything we've been taught. In the Gospel of Mary, Mary isn't some lost soul rescued by Jesus. She's a teacher, a leader, a spiritual authority in her own right. And what's even more stunning is that Jesus himself appears to affirm her role. In this Gospel, after Jesus' departure, the disciples are confused, grieving, and frightened. They don't understand the teachings he left behind, and they're uncertain about what to do next. That's when Mary steps forward, not timidly, not cautiously, but with clarity and strength. She reminds them of the wisdom Jesus shared and encourages them to rise above fear. And then something extraordinary happens. Mary reveals that Jesus continued to teach her privately, in visions after his death. She shares profound metaphysical insights he gave her, teachings that the other disciples had never heard. We're talking about a view of the soul's ascent through layers of illusion and ignorance, a mystical journey where inner knowledge is the key to liberation. This wasn't just another sermon or parable. It was esoteric, radical, and completely outside the structures of formal religion. No temples, no sacrifices, no middlemen, just direct knowledge, gnosis, and the courage to face one's inner darkness in order to remember who we truly are. But this bold revelation doesn't go over well. Peter, representing the established masculine authority, immediately doubts her. He asks, "Did he really speak these things to a woman and not openly to us?" His tone is skeptical, dismissive, even offended. You can feel the tension rising, a woman taking center stage, claiming spiritual authority. That wasn't the order of things, yet Mary holds her ground. She doesn't argue, she simply speaks the truth as she received it. And Levi, another disciple, calls out Peter for his jealousy. He says what many must have felt but were too afraid to admit, that Jesus clearly loved Mary more than any of them, that he trusted her, that her words deserved to be heard. This moment is monumental. It's not just a clash of egos. It's a glimpse into the early fractures within the movement of Jesus' followers, a power struggle between direct spiritual experience and institutional control, between feminine wisdom and patriarchal hierarchy, between the inner knowing of the heart and the outer authority of the law. The Gospel of Mary presents a version of events where the spiritual lineage of Jesus wasn't passed to Peter or Paul, but to Mary. She wasn't a footnote. She was the center, and this changes everything. Because if Mary was meant to be the bearer of the true teachings, if she was the one who actually understood the inner path that Jesus taught, then Christianity as we know it may have taken a key, sharp detour very early on. The early church fathers must have realized this. They must have seen how threatening Mary's voice was to the structures they were building, structures based on power, hierarchy, and obedience. So they silenced her, buried her story, and recast her as something else entirely. But now that story is returning, and it's not just about historical justice. It's about spiritual clarity. What if the path to divine truth was never meant to be top-down but inside out? What if the real kingdom of heaven is within? Coming up, we'll explore the hidden teachings Mary received from Jesus, the visions that go far beyond the material world and offer a roadmap to awaken the soul. When Mary begins to recount what Jesus revealed to her in a private vision, the tone of the gospel shifts. We move from dialogue and tension into the heart of the mystery, a transmission of sacred knowledge that challenges everything we think. We know about salvation, sin, and the soul, but here's the first twist. Parts of the manuscript are missing. Entire pages have been lost to time, torn away or destroyed, leaving us with an incomplete record of what may have been the most radical spiritual teachings of early Christianity. And yet, even in the fragments that remain, we find a blueprint for spiritual awakening that is strikingly profound. Mary describes how, after Jesus' departure, she experienced a vision in which she saw his true form, not a physical body, but a radiant presence. He spoke to her not about laws, commandments, or rituals, but about the journey of the soul. He described how the soul, upon leaving the body, must pass through a series of realms or powers, forces that attempt to pull it back into ignorance, desire, and fear. Each power represents a barrier of attachment, illusion, or false identity that must be transcended in order to return to its divine source. This isn't just poetic metaphor, it's a psychological and spiritual roadmap. The powers Mary names, darkness, desire, ignorance, wrath, among others, are not merely supernatural entities but inner states of being. Jesus is telling her that the real battle is within, and the true salvation is self-knowledge. The soul must confront its own illusions, release its attachments, and recognize its divine origin. This teaching echoes ancient Gnostic principles, but it's more than that. It's a deeply personal message about awakening, about remembering. Jesus tells Mary that the soul is divine by nature, but forgets its true identity when immersed in the material world. The journey back is not about punishment or redemption, it's about remembrance and liberation. And this is precisely what made the teaching so dangerous. Imagine a world where people believed they didn't need a priest, a church, or a ritual to connect with the divine. Imagine a teaching that proclaimed the kingdom of heaven is not a place to get to, but a state of being you awaken to. Imagine telling people they could bypass the structures of power by looking within. For the early church, this was spiritual rebellion, and Mary was at the center of it. The Gospel of Mary challenges us to rethink everything, from how we define sin to who we believe has spiritual authority. It flips the narrative from obedience to inquiry, from guilt to growth, from hierarchy to inner truth. It invites each of us to walk the path Mary walked, to confront the voices of doubt, to resist the forces of fear, and to claim the divine wisdom that already lives within. It's no wonder they tried to silence her, but here's what they couldn't erase: the resonance, the echo, the quiet but unshakable sense that truth has a way of surviving, even in fragments. Mary's account reminds us that awakening isn't about being told what to believe. It's about remembering what we've always known deep down, that we are not separate, not broken, not condemned. We are on a journey back to ourselves, back to source, back to the divine presence that lives in all things. Next, we'll explore the conflict Mary faced with the other disciples. Why were her revelations so difficult for them to accept? And what does their resistance teach us about the human tendency to reject what challenges the status quo? Let's dive into the tension and the truth it reveals. One of the most groundbreaking messages hidden in Mary Magdalene's Gospel is about the power of inner knowledge, the kind that awakens the true self beyond all appearances. Jesus taught that the kingdom of God isn't something out there, somewhere far away. It's right inside each one of us, waiting to be discovered. This kingdom is a state of consciousness where we recognize our connection to the source, where the false masks we wear daily start to fall away, and our true identity shines through. This inner knowledge is not about memorizing rules or following rituals. It's about direct experience, a personal awakening. Mary Magdalene was seen as a symbol of this deep wisdom, someone who truly understood what it meant to awaken beyond societal roles and religious expectations. She reminds us that true spirituality comes from within and cannot be handed down through books or sermons alone. Instead, it's a living, breathing experience that transforms every part of who we are. The journey to awaken this true self is challenging because it means questioning everything we've been taught about who we are and how the world works. It's a radical unlearning of old beliefs and embracing a new way of seeing reality. A shift from living in fear and separation to living in love and unity. This awakening process connects us not only to ourselves, but to all life, dissolving the walls that divide us. In practical terms, this means cultivating a relationship with your inner world through meditation, reflection, and openness to the mysteries beyond the visible. It means listening deeply to your intuition and trusting the guidance that arises from within. Jesus' secret teachings emphasize that this connection is the key to true freedom, freedom from suffering, from false identity, and from the illusions that trap the soul. Mary Magdalene's role as a teacher was to guide others on this path of awakening, showing that the way forward is through inner transformation, not external conquest. She embodies the courage to face the shadows within and to emerge stronger and more whole. Her story invites us to take that same brave step, to look inward, find the divine spark inside, and let it light the way to spiritual liberation. The story of Mary Magdalene and her secret teachings didn't just fade away quietly. Instead, it was actively buried by the early church, which saw these truths as a real threat to its control. For centuries, powerful leaders worked hard to erase any evidence that challenged the official narrative. One of the most infamous moves was by Pope Gregory the Great in 591 AD, who painted Mary Magdalene as a repentant prostitute, a damaging story that stuck for over a millennium. This false image wasn't just an accident, it was a calculated way to diminish her role and keep the spiritual authority firmly in the hands of men. But why all this effort to suppress her? Simply put, Mary Magdalene's teachings embodied a gnosis, a deep personal knowledge of the divine that anyone could access, bypassing traditional hierarchies. This knowledge was about awakening the inner light, about the spiritual energy that connects us all to the source. It went against the patriarchal system that preferred obedience and control over true enlightenment. If people embraced this path, the entire structure of power would crumble, because this gnosis empowered the individual to awaken their own consciousness and see through the illusions of the world. Thankfully, the hidden texts started to resurface in the 19th and 20th centuries, like sparks of light breaking through the darkness. Manuscripts such as the Gospel of Mary, discovered in the 1800s, and the Nag Hammadi Library, found in Egypt in 1945, revealed a radically different Jesus, one who shared secret teachings with Mary Magdalene and spoke openly about the path to spiritual liberation. These writings emphasize energy, awakening, and a deep connection to the spiritual realm, not just blind faith. They remind us that illumination comes from within, through personal gnosis and the ongoing journey of the soul. For those on the path of awakening today, these rediscoveries are more than historical curiosities. They are powerful tools. Imagine tapping into the same wisdom that Jesus shared in secret with Mary Magdalene, unlocking the mysteries of the unseen world, and navigating the spiritual challenges that bind the soul. It's about embracing a mysticism that is alive, vibrant, and practical, guiding each seeker toward their own awakening of consciousness. This isn't just ancient history. It's a living tradition that calls us to question, to explore, and to rise. And just as the Church tried to silence this knowledge centuries ago, many still resist it today. But the energy of awakening can't be contained forever. As more people seek to break free from outdated dogmas and reconnect with the true source, the energy that animates all life, the hidden gospel of Mary Magdalene shines brighter than ever. What does this mean for the future of spirituality and the awakening of consciousness worldwide? That's exactly what the next chapter invites you to explore. Mary Magdalene wasn't just a follower of Jesus. She was a leader, a teacher, and the keeper of the deepest secrets of his teachings. The Church's attempt to erase her from history only shows how powerful her message really was. Today, as we rediscover these hidden truths, we're invited to rethink everything we know about spirituality, power, and awakening. Her story is more than history. It's a call to awaken our own inner wisdom, to challenge the illusions that keep us stuck and to reclaim the divine power within each of us. Mary Magdalene's Gospel is a guide for anyone ready to break free from control and live in true spiritual freedom. In the next videos, we'll dive deeper into the teachings Mary Magdalene carried, explore how her message survived through the ages, and reveal practical ways you can start applying this hidden knowledge in your own life right now.